got some things to get off his chest. That, and of course, the wrestling historian. And just please know that if Craig is ever sick, that is the only time we will not have a wrestling historian segment on HIAC Talk Radio. Here we are. Welcome once again. We're both at a feverish pitch because the Flyers are red hot. The Sixers have just started, and I don't know what to do with myself. So we're going to talk about wrestling. Like I said, I have a few things to get off my chest. I'm going to lead Craig into it. I learned, like we've said many times before, we learned off the Preston and Steve School of Radio. This is what we're going to talk about. I want to know nothing more until we go live. So he knows the basics. He does not know where I'm going with it, but it's always going to be intelligent wrestling discussion if I do toot my own horn on this show. As always, I am the above-average comedian, Dan Kyle Chico. I can't even say my own name on Twitter at DanLaw83. Craig Legans is on all social media platforms at Craig Legans. I can't even steal your gimmick. Do it, please.
CRAIGGEONS. And like the great Mr. Calachico said, all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Craig Legans.
Okay. First things first, and add a third thing. You don't have to comment on this. This is going to be a quick one. Got into a Twitter discussion today, and I shouldn't have because that's my own damn fault. Yes, I know. It's we were talking on air how 5 minutes into the first quarter, Tobias Harris is already a POS, and the season just started, but that just tells you how Twitter goes today. We got into a discussion about WWE. It's not even allegedly. I like people who say allegedly. WWE has been known for years, before the Monday Night Wars, during the Monday Night Wars, and after and present, that if you're on camera and you come to one of their shows wearing a Rivals t-shirts, they're going to most likely tell you to take it off. This person on Twitter said two things. They have no right to do that, which, debatable. I'll get to that first part in a second. And second, no other sports team or league does that. Well, I have two counterpoints, and I just wanted them out loud. As far as point number two, we stop you right there. Just hockey alone, I can give you 3 examples on a team or teams making it to the playoffs and purposely either sitting people, moving people, or telling them to remove colors not the same as their team during the playoff round. It happens. It happens regularly. Not looking at you, Tampa Bay Lightning. It happens regularly. Not looking at you, Nashville Predators. There are teams in baseball, hockey. Baseball, hockey, I know definitely happens. I've heard a few instances of football teams where they won't even sell tickets to people outside of the area because they want people who are fans to buy tickets first. So we're not even talking about colors of shirts and jerseys here. We're talking about actual people being barred from buying tickets to a sporting event. So your whole WWE is the only one who does this argument. I just threw it out the window with logic and fact. Google it. Check my work. There is no flaw in this logic. On top of the fact is I find it very interesting that we always use the argument that don't call wrestling fake. In the same argument, we say, well, suspend disbelief. In the same argument, wrestling's not real. We can't treat it as such unless it benefits our agenda. I went through his Twitter. He made very sarcastic comments in the last couple days about how, and I'm not giving his name because he's an idiot, about how, well, don't take it so seriously, but you just compared it for professional sports. So you can only compare it when it suits you. So the second argument, right out. The first argument, does WWE have the right to do this? You bought a ticket to their show. They're not oppressing you for your basic civil rights. They're not oppressing you. This isn't Hong Kong where you're getting shot for protesting. You're on their television show to where the other company has come along and say, in one breath said, well, this is not a competition. This is an alternative. At the same time, throwing every shot they can at said company, which I have no problem with. That's the way it goes in wrestling and in entertainment. It's about beating the other guy. I have no complaints one way or the other about that. But you went to a WWE event knowingly wearing an AEW shirt, and you didn't think A, you were going to get moved, and B, told to take the shirt off. They rent that arena. You bought the ticket to their show. In those 3 hours, 4 hours, you sitting in that arena, you do indeed have to follow the rules set by promoter, concert, or sports event in that arena. End of discussion. Whether or not agree with it, I do happen to think it's stupid. You shouldn't have to remove the t-shirt if you're that good. Who cares? But that's fact. They do have a right. Sports teams do it. It's not just the WWE, and I know the AEW is flawless. I know, dude. And that's a general statement. Do you have anything you want to follow up with on that one, or just move on, Craig?
No, I agree. And well, during the height of the Monday Night Wars, how many NWO shirts did you see on the WWE?
Very few. One got by every now and then, but let's just say I saw more WWF t-shirts on Nitro than I saw NWO shirts on Raw.
Yeah.
So, wake up. The guy tried to compare the one dude, and the reason why I brought up the Hong Kong thing is one dude really came up and compared it to the Hong Kong NBA thing. I'm like, no, that's not the same thing. WWE isn't shooting people. Let's try. I get your point, but no, that's not it, sir. So back to the notes that I left of this. So the WWE killed Seth Rollins. It occurred to me, and I'm very wear my heart on my sleeve kind of guy. It's not a cliche. I say what I think, and if I'm wrong, I correct myself publicly or otherwise. So I'm here to say that I might have said that I stick by we're HIAC. The Hell in a Cell pay-per-view might have not been the worst show, and the show was great leading up to that main event, and that the main event was garbage, but it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. But one thing I didn't take into account is that it might have killed Seth Rollins' push. Not in the eyes of the WWE, but it might have killed it in the eyes of the fans, because the last 2 weeks, every reaction he's gotten has gotten worse. I think we're in the same situation where John Cena thing, only it's not tongue-in-cheek. The John Cena thing I always felt was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, Craig, where people were cheering and booing him, but deep down the guys were booing like, John Cena, I don't really care. Like, I'm not get him off my TV kind of deal. But you know what I mean? The Seth Rollins thing, having him in a cage against the entity in a Hell in a Cell was a stupid idea. That I will say. But I was wrong about Seth Rollins. It sounds like people have turned on him. And I think that the WWE has killed another potential top babyface in the company, and people are tired of looking at it. At the end of that show, off air, people were booing him out of the building. And I think you watch shows like NWA and AEW, when you look at something that's booked so much down your throat, it's almost harder to look at. Like, it's like watching a train wreck. I don't know if you've gotten that vibe, but I think the WWE has screwed up another top babyface with their overbooking of the situation. There's no way they should be. There's no way this should be dead already, and I really feel that there should not be a rematch. I think they've ruined Seth Rollins, is what I'm saying. What do you think?
Obviously, the ending to the Hell in a Cell match with Bray Wyatt got a lot of heat, and which wasn't Seth's fault because of the way it was booked. And this is the first I've heard. Maybe because I wasn't paying attention. Just whenever Seth Rollins comes out, I just hear a lot of noise. You know, unlike what Roman Reigns, where it was just they're booing him. You know. And with John Cena in certain parts of the country, oh yeah, they're booing him. But other times it's just like a lot of noise. So I didn't hear a lot of negative response. That might be why they put him in against another babyface today, even though the babyface in the promo kind of put some heat on Seth as if he were a heel. Because I don't, even his little comment, I don't burn things down. I hope not. I always thought it was, Roman, because it was the fans turned on him legitimately because he was being shoved down everyone's throat. Seth is a lot more likable than Roman. I guess he's more user friendly, more fan friendly than Roman was. Not that Roman wasn't, but I in this case I think it's salvageable that if they want to keep Seth as a babyface champion that they can, that there is enough heels there that can that Seth can combat to get some of his face cred back. I don't think it would help him at all to turn back heel. But yeah, just the whole Fiend thing is just threw everything out of whack. And I don't even know what the hell they're going to do with him on SmackDown, Fiend rather, unless he has a title shot with Brock Lesnar, which he should. But now that he's gone, now that Bray Wyatt's gone from Raw, hopefully they can concentrate on Seth, your world champion, being the central figure without being shoved down everyone's throat. So I don't think they've killed him, but from what you're saying, from what you've heard on the feedback he's getting, it might be not that far behind.
We'll see. Yeah, I feel at this point he could be a better, which it'll segue into the next point very nicely. He's a better heel at this point because he could be such a jerk about things and his voice can be annoying. I don't mean his voice is annoying. He has a purposely annoying cadence when he's being a jackass or a heel or like when he first turned and was with Triple H, he had that very chicken S delivery, and when he's being a jerk, he could have that delivery again, which brought me up to my third point, which was really my second, but I added one. The AEW is minor leagues? ? Another argument I saw this week, folks. For those who are watching the video, the Sixers game is on. I'm trying not to emote so much because I'm way more ADD than Craig, and I will lose my place, and Craig will be able to jump in and out. But the reason why he's emoting because the Sixers are playing the Celtics, so bear with us, folks. We are an emotional bunch. If it was the Flyers on right now, you'd be seeing double reaction, I'm sure, with the way the Flyers play. No, everything's fine. One of the arguments I wanted to clear up with how you felt about it and how I felt about it is AEW minor league. I've been very vocal about this since they announced their TV show, since their inception and All In. I am not a pro WWE guy. I am a pro wrestling guy. No pun intended. I'm a pro wrestling guy. I don't care who's on top. I don't. When I was a kid, it was all about WCW is better. I was the only one on my block that watched WCW while everybody else watched WWF or E. And it's a little different because now I'm just a pro wrestling fan. I've watched so much of it, it just doesn't matter at this point in that way. But when AEW announced that they were going to be on Wednesday nights, we all knew that they weren't going to run. We knew right there, at least at first, they weren't going to go head-to-head with Raw or SmackDown. They were going to go head-to-head with NXT. NXT then got a deal to go in USA, whether it was deliberate or if it was just coincidental. I'm assuming it was deliberate. NXT moved to Wednesday nights. All I see from the WWE right on down to the marks and everybody in between who is, respectfully wrestling fans, is that NXT is a minor league, a developmental system, if you will. And I don't mean what I'm going to say disrespectfully to AEW because their show is great. It looks great. They got great talent. They're about 50-50 as much as WWE is me entertaining on bad gimmicks or bad storylines or not, but it just started. So there's a little bit of a romantic, period here. However, they purposely didn't go against Raw or SmackDown. That's deliberate. They also are going against the minor leagues on purpose. Seth Rollins caught heat for saying something. Kenny Omega and him, they take shots at each other on Twitter. Everybody does it from all leagues, everywhere from shindies to indies to the big guys and girls. Kenny said something. Seth replied. Seth was at an interview or a little con, and said, when Kenny wants to get done in the minor leagues, you let me know. And everybody got mad at him. I said, they are the minor leagues. You're telling me with your logic that WWE and NXT is the minor leagues. As far as I'm concerned, if AEW is competing against the minor leagues, what the hell are they? Craig is tell me I'm wrong. I would like you to tell me I'm wrong, because I'm okay with being wrong on this one.
No, AEW is not the minor leagues. I will say that they employ a lot of minor league talent. That AEW is the only place you're going to see someone like Jungle Boy, or Orange Cassidy, or the guy with no legs, that kind of thing. So, but in that same vein, ECW was considered minor league too, and ECW presented more Hall of Fame talent than any organization not named WWE or NWA. Same with Smoky Mountain. You've got to start somewhere, and I wouldn't even call NXT minor league. But this is one person's opinion, but I've never seen AEW as a minor league at all. Not with the amount of first-rate talent that they have, not the first-rate matches that they put on. But do they employ minor league talent? Yes, some.
Yeah. All right, well, that's why I asked you. But I do understand Seth's point. This is a competition, guys. We've all been here before. We've been through the Monday night.
Yeah.
We know this is going to get petty. They're all professionals. You're not professionals. You are on Twitter. Let the professionals handle the professional crap and just enjoy the show. If you like what did CM Punk say the other day? You don't have to listen to any of these guys tell you who's the best. Watch whatever the F you want. Watch it all. We should be benefiting for us, and the fans are even more split. I don't understand what about today. Well, I kind of do. No pun intended. Why people are split more than come together on things we should all come together on. But even in wrestling, it's like, well, I don't like, well, F you. It's red. I'm watching AEW and NXT at the same time on the same screen right now. What's to complain about?
Yeah, and we get NWA Power tomorrow, and we get wrestling on Friday nights like the old days. So
Saturday nights we got WoW and New Japan.
Yeah, so wrestling fans are the winners here. So it's not.
New Japan just announced the deal before WWE was able to start in Japan. Japan opened an American subsidiary. That's not the right word, but they're going to be doing business exclusively in America now. So you got another federation, or a knockoff of the main federation that's going to be in the States again. It's a good time for wrestling. And let me just say also about NWA Power, sir, Aaron. Oh my God, I forgot his name.
Aaron Stevens, Idol Stevens.
Aaron Stevens was again the star of the show this week. Have to put that out there. If you watch nothing else, watch him talk.
Yeah.
One last part about NWA. I want your perspective on it because you've watched so much more wrestling than me. And this will transition right into your wrestling historian. So take it away. I did it on purpose.
Thank you.
NWA Power is making the argument. I'll put it this way. A guy like Aaron Stevens come out and not have one script and sound amazing. Just like a Ric Flair, just like a Tully Blanchard, a Jim Cornette in the old days. Just names out of my butt for the unscripted stuff. And some of the guys on NWA Power, you understand why there does need to be some scripts and some coaching. The Dawson brothers are awesome. They're awesome in ring. They have an awesome look. Once they get on the mic, I mute it. I don't need to hear them talk. Craig, your thoughts on that, and then take us right into the just give us your thoughts on that and then stop, because I have to do that my editing magic thing.
If the NWA Power Hour wants to really go back to the old days and kick it old school with the old school vibe and everything like that, then they that organization needs to go really old school and bring back the manager. Because if the anything the Dawson brothers need more than anything else is a mouthpiece, is a weaselly, spindly, or an overweight, or a woman who can't shut up, or just some type of heel magnet to talk people into the building or to talk people into turning on YouTube to get people so upset that I want to see somebody get my hands on this little weasel, whoever he or she may be, because if they get by this awesome tag team called the Dawsons, then they can get their hands on whoever that mouthpiece is talking for them, running their mouth on camera.
Yeah.
So that's what the Dawsons I know that whole vibe, and NWA wasn't a haven for managers the way that the WWF was or the way that Memphis was, because they prided themselves on having these big heel brutish guys that couldn't talk. That's why the manager position was created, so this guy can do all your talking for you. The Dawson brothers are someone that needs someone like that, because they're over enough as a great tag team, but having a manager with a great tag team is a license to print money. Ask Jim Cornette.
Bobby Heenan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lou Albano.
Lou Albano. Yes, we just talked about him at great length last week. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the rumor originally was, and like these are filmed at 8 at a time, so I'm assuming it's still going to happen down the road. That the guy that was going to be their mouthpiece down the road storyline wise was Eddie Kingston.
Okay.
There you go. That you just answered.
Yeah.
You literally ticked off every check off your list, dude. With Eddie Kingston. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
So I hope that comes true, because them alone, not good.
And thank you, Dan, for introducing me to the wrestling fans. And with this segment, we lovingly call the Wrestling Historian. If you will travel back with me into the Wayback Machine, folks, we were just talking about the NWA Power Pro, and back when the NWA was the largest governing body in professional wrestling, where even the WWF was a member of the NWA, back when territories ruled the professional wrestling land, back when titles were actually called belts, and back when sports entertainment was professional wrestling. We're going to go back to October 19th. This is a recent, fairly recent wrestling historian. We're going to go back to October 19th, 2003, to the No Mercy pay-per-view, which took place in your favorite city, Baltimore, Maryland, Dan. Because that particular No Mercy in Baltimore, Maryland, featured the Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon I Quit match. And now the Maryland State Athletic Commission is very specific. They had this in their bylaws, in the State Athletic Commission, that no man shall ever compete against a woman in any sporting event. Boxing, wrestling, tiddlywinks, anything. Which is why a WCW match was changed at the last minute when they had a man versus a woman, even in the mixed tag team match. Well, in this particular, one of the main events was Vince versus Stephanie McMahon, and the McMahons paid the fine the hours before the pay-per-view in order for this match to take place. And the Stephanie Vince I Quit match, which Stephanie lost, and she actually wasn't seen on camera for another 2 years. So that was in 2003. The very next year, that same date, October 19th, 2004, and this is welcome to the show, Amber, ladies and gentlemen, was WWE's Taboo Tuesday. And I only brought up this match because of the participants and see where they were 15 years ago this week. Shelton Benjamin defeated Chris Jericho for the Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship.
Wow.
15 years ago this week. October 19th, 2004. And we just saw Shelton this past week on SmackDown. And Chris Jericho, as we know, we talked about AEW, the reigning AEW heavyweight champion. But 15 years ago, there was a Intercontinental Championship match, and that was Shelton Benjamin's first big push that occurred at Taboo Tuesday. October 19th, that same day, 2012, very sad legacy that happened. October 19th, 2012, we lost Mike Graham. Mike Graham, Dan, we talked on this podcast, and we've talked about the episode Dark Side of the Ring. We've discussed the tragic legacy of the Von Erichs. The Graham family really, not that they should get more attention for this, but Mike Graham on this date in 2012 killed himself, shot himself. His father, the great Eddie Graham, shot himself. Mike Graham's son, unfortunately, shot himself. Mike Graham's grandfather and uncle both died of suicide. So the Graham family, as great as they were, Eddie, obviously, one of the great minds of professional wrestling history, responsible for more brilliant ideas and more mindsets, wrestling mindset than anyone else. Maybe, I mean, from everyone to Dusty Rhodes to Bill Watts to Kevin Sullivan, all owe their careers to Eddie Graham. Vince McMahon Sr., his champions he got from Eddie Graham, namely superstar Billy Graham and Bob Backlund, were Eddie Graham. People will call up Eddie Graham for other promoters, everyone from Vince McMahon Sr. to Sam Muchnick in St. Louis to Jarrett in Memphis. We called up Eddie because, hey, I need a finish, Eddie. What do I do? And they call him like hours before a match. And because Eddie Graham was that innovative and that had such a mind for the business, he passed it on to Mike. And Mike Graham, who had a not as lucrative career wrestling-wise, but because of his size. Yeah. Mike Graham, to me, was like the Allen Iverson of wrestling. Had he been a little taller, and with his pedigree and with his mind for wrestling, he would have done amazing things. He did with his in tag teams with Steve Keirn and with Bob Backlund. He was very successful. Little known fact, he won a state high school wrestling championship. He went to Robinson High School in Florida, and in the finals he defeated Richard Blood, who we now know as Ricky Steamboat.
Wow.
Yeah, but great amateur, great pro, mind for the business. But like his father, when he found he bad investments, and with his father, he had lost championship wrestling from Florida, his baby, for more than 30 years, launched more careers than probably any other promoter, and they all eclipsed him. And the monopoly of the WWE taken over. And this January 1985, it made the front page of the Tampa Tribune when Eddie Graham passed away, because he was also a big contributor in the community, the Boy Scouts of America. Before he even died, it was the Eddie Graham chapter in Florida. Wow. He was huge in charity, and Mike carried it on in his way. It's a shame Mike Graham will probably always be known as kicking the crap out of Sid Vicious, and Sid, to combat Mike Graham, picked up a squeegee.
Wow. I have a dumb question for you.
Sir.
Was Billy Graham kayfabe related?
Yes. Eddie and Mike were the only Grahams that they were father and son. The rest of the Graham family, Superstar, Crazy Luke, were not related. Jerry Graham, Dr. Jerry Graham and Eddie were brothers. Yes. But the rest of the Graham family, Superstar, Crazy Luke, were not related.
Yeah, Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, we lost Mike Graham October 19th, 2012. Going October 20th, 1984. Um, the aforementioned Dusty Rhodes and Manny Fernandez became the NWA Tag Team Champions when they defeated Ivan Koloff and Don Kernodle. Um, this is when Dusty took over the book in Mid Atlantic when he left Championship Wrestling from Florida. That made Eddie Graham's Championship Wrestling from Florida actually put it on the map. But Dusty going over to the Mid Atlantic, taking the book there, making him and Manny the NWA Tag Team Champions. Manny Fernandez wasn't got his start in Florida under the tutelage of Dusty Rhodes, and they won the NWA Tag Team Championship in 1984. 2 years later, October 20th, 1986, Crusher Yurkov defeated Steve Sampson for the World Class Television title. Crusher Yurkov was a badly designed angle for Bam Bam Bigelow. Bam Bam Bigelow was Crusher Yurkov. Back when American wrestlers were turned Russian, Barry Darsow became Crusher Darsow, and then later on Crusher Khrushchev. And to capitalize on that, Jim Neidhart did the same thing when he became a quote-unquote Russian. So World Class, trying to capitalize on the trend that the NWA was following, changed his name. It became a Russian sympathizer, and Bam Bam Bigelow became Crusher Yurkov. That lasted for all 3 months, but in Texas, Bam Bam Crusher Yurkov won the World Class Television title. Keeping on that same trend, October 20th, 1989, Kerry Von Erich defeated The Punisher for the World Class Texas Heavyweight title. The Punisher, who we now know under a mask, was The Undertaker. And that was his first singles championship. But Kerry Von Erich defeated The Punisher. And staying on that trend, on that same day, October 20th, 1996, in WWF's In Your House Buried Alive, the first Buried Alive match between Mankind and The Undertaker, a person came out under the mask called the Executioner, who would throw The Undertaker into a shallow grave. The person under the mask of the Executioner, Terry Gordy. So on this particular day, noticing a trend of people with different wrestlers that we know under different identities.
Well, hold on a second. Disclaimer. As much as I've watched wrestling and Craig will defend me, all the useless and useful nuggets of information I have about wrestling, less than him, I say that humbly, sir. All the other stuff I know, that was Terry Bam Bam Gordy.
Terry Gordy under the mask.
I didn't know that.
As the Executioner, yes. On loan from Jim Cornette, because the year prior to that, exactly a year earlier, Dan, October 20th, 1995, it was Terry Gordy who defeated Tracy Smothers for the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Heavyweight Championship.
Got it. That all makes sense.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Executioner never caught on, and I wouldn't see Terry Gordy under a mask anyway, but that was Terry Gordy as the Executioner under the mask that buried The Undertaker, and of course, the classic shot of the pyrotechnic lightning bolt coming and hitting the ground, and The Undertaker's hand coming out of the earth.
Wow.
Yeah.
That chills, man.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I'm going to go back and watch that. That's amazing. Hell yeah. Good.
Staying on that date, October 20th, 2013, at TNA's Bound for Glory. Some interesting wrestling took place from people that we know. On that card, Bobby Roode defeated Kurt Angle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And AJ Styles would defeat Bully Ray for the TNA Heavyweight Championship, and that would be the last time that AJ Styles would be the TNA Heavyweight Champion.
Wonder why.
Yeah. But also interesting on this card, Dan, one of the men on the matches on the undercard, Magnus defeated Sting clean with a Texas Cloverleaf, had him tap out, and Magnus defeated Sting. Magnus, who'd only been wrestling for 3 years at that point, got the biggest win of his career by making Sting tap out. Magnus, as we know now, under his real name, Nick Aldis, is the current reigning NWA heavyweight champion.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, but 6 years ago, that happened. Also, October 20th, 2000, landmark date, if you can call it that, the WCW officially released Bret Hart. And Bret Hart announced his retirement. Now, whether Bret announced his retirement first and then WCW released him, or WCW released him and then Bret Hart announced his retirement, but October 20th, 2000, the WCW released Bret Hart. And we're going to hear Bret Hart again because this was a week for Bret Hart in wrestling history. But that was the end of his WCW career, October 20th.
Why are you laughing, Craig?
I'm not. I'm find the irony, the upcoming irony, whimsical. That's where the grin comes from. October 21st, 1972, Dan, was the first ever All Japan show. Giant Baba's company, All Japan, made its debut October 21st, 1972, where Baba in the main event, it was Giant Baba and someone named Thunder Sugiyama, who I'd never heard of. But they wrestled in the main event versus, check this tag team out. Giant Baba and Thunder Sugiyama wrestled the tag team of Bruno Sammartino and Terry Funk in the first ever All Japan wrestling show. The main event.
And
yes.
What'd
you say?
I didn't really say anything that was in English.
But yeah, that was the first ever All Japan show. The tag team Bruno Sammartino and Terry Funk.
I was going to let you go, but this question is bothering me, and you may or may not have an answer to this. Who owns that stuff?
The All Japan stuff? I want to say at this point it may be Inoki, but that's just a guess because I know after his death, because Bob had All Japan and Tony had New Japan. But under all their auspices, I have no idea who would own that, or even if that tape even exists.
Yeah, because we met about a year ago. I started seeing All Japan stuff I've never seen. Start popping up on Facebook. Papadon shares it because he loves the Japanese wrestling shows, and I've been seeing a lot of All Japan stuff I'd never seen or knew existed, kind of like that tag team match. And I'm like, where is this stuff? This is gold here.
Yeah. And staying on that date, October 21st, 1977, we talk about big breaks. Ricky Steamboat defeated Ric Flair for the United States Heavyweight Championship, a match that would put Ricky Steamboat. He had already defeated Ric Flair for the Mid-Atlantic TV title, but beating Ric Flair for the United States title, which was the number one title in the Mid-Atlantic, which was the number one area in the NWA, just catapulted Ricky Steamboat into superstardom again because of Ric Flair. But he won his first United States title October 21st, 1977.
I have an update. You know who owns All Japan stuff? All Japan stuff, because they still run.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. They've been running again since 14.
Okay, but they got their first start October 21st, 1972.
What an anniversary, and the stuff you find
out. Staying on that date, October 21st, 1983, one of the greatest tag team feuds of all time that doesn't really get the credit it deserves. Jack and Jerry Briscoe, the original Briscoe brothers, defeated, again, Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood for the NWA Tag Team title in 1983. That tag team title win by the Briscoes, which set up their final match at Starrcade later that year, the very first Starrcade. But the Briscoes regained the NWA Tag Team title October 21st, 1983, paving the way for their epic title match at the very first Starrcade 3 months later. And did I say the first ever All Japan show was October 21st, 1972? Well, the 13th anniversary show, Dan, in 1985 in All Japan, featured the very first and last title versus title match. The AWA Heavyweight Champion Rick Martel took on the NWA Heavyweight Champion Ric Flair at the 13th anniversary All Japan show in 1985.
The things you're saying this week, you've been doing this segment for almost 2 years now. Almost 3? Almost, God, where did time go? I was 20 when we started. No. And because sometimes, and I don't mind because sometimes it's bears repeating, there's stuff that gets repeated. And we will talk about it and we will say different things that we never said the first time when we talked about it. But my God, I have never heard any of this week, this time. And you're blowing my mind here. You're blowing my mind. I would kill to find that footage.
Yeah, but you said, is there any footage of that of Bruno and Terry Funk? This is really the match I wanted to know if there was footage of, because it made all the after magazines. It was a 30-minute double count out. Rick Martel, the AWA Heavyweight Champion, took on the NWA Heavyweight Champion Ric Flair at the 13th anniversary, and the main event of the 13th anniversary All Japan show. But those two had to regroup because the very next day they were a tag team, featuring when that would be the only time that the current AWA champion and the current NWA champion would form a tag team. And they went up against Tenryu and Seiji Sakaguchi. But on that date, on the 13th anniversary of the first All Japan show, the AWA versus NWA, the first, last, and only time that those two world champions would face off against each other. And remember, I was smiling earlier when I said that Bret Hart was released by WCW October 20th.
Uh-huh.
Well, October 21st, 1996, was the day that Bret Hart signed his 20-year contract with the WWE. 1996, Bret Hart signed a 20-year contract with the WWF. Vince thought under those conditions, he talked about it on the WWF program, thought that he would badmouth the WCW, which he didn't. But he signed a 20-year deal with the WWF on this date, October 21st, 1996. Almost a year to the day later would be when Vince McMahon would ask him to drop the title to Shawn Michaels at that year's Survivor Series, which would result in the Montreal Screwjob, which is to this day the most controversial thing in professional wrestling history.
Thing is a good word for it.
Yeah, but he signed a 20-year contract. On that same day, though, Hunter Hearst Helmsley would defeat Wildman Mark Marrow for the Intercontinental title, Hunter's first championship in the WWE. That same day.
That was after enduring the brunt of the punishment from the curtain call, because everybody else, because Vince is not going to punish Shawn, can't punish the other two. Well, Paul, It's all yours, buddy. And he endured. Yep. He took the crap. You're going to take crap. You're going to just have to deal with it. And he did. And now he basically almost owns that company. So
he paid his dues. He jobbed for Taka Michinoku, for the Brooklyn Brawler, he did it. But he won his first title October 21st, 1996, against Mark Marrow. October 21st, 2001, at WWF's No Mercy, part of the WWF WCW Invasion storyline, Chris Jericho would win his very first WCW Heavyweight Championship by defeating, of all people, The Rock in a WWE ring.
Man.
Yeah. So I'm going to say Chris Jericho should have been a WCW World Heavyweight Champion when he wrestled for the actual WCW, but better late than never. Couldn't have done it against a better opponent, but Chris Jericho defeated The Rock for the WCW, his only WCW Heavyweight, his first WCW Heavyweight Champion, I should say, October 21st, 2001. October 22nd, 1979. I'm including this because I remember when it happened because it was a big deal. And the October 22nd, 1979, in Madison Square Garden, Ivan Putski and Tito Santana defeated the Valiant Brothers for the WWF Tag Team Championship. That would be Tito Santana's first ever championship of any kind and his first WWF Tag Team Championship, a title that he would hold later on with the former AWA Heavyweight Champion Rick Martel as Strikeforce, but he won his first tag team title, first title of any kind, with Ivan Putski, 1979, against the Valiant Brothers. October 22nd, 1984, my pick is one of the most influential tag teams of all time. The Fabulous Ones won their 8th Southern Tag Team title, their 8th of 14 reigns, Dan. But on this particular day, the Fabulous Ones, arguably the most influential tag team of all time, defeated the tag team of Rick Rude and King Kong Bundy for the Southern, both managed by Jimmy Hart.
All right.
Mind you. This was when they were all in Memphis years before, less than a year before they were all in the WWF. But the Fabulous Ones defeated King Kong Bundy and Rick Rude for the Southern Tag Team Championship. October 22nd, 1995, one of the weirdest moments in pay-per-view history to me, because it's never happened. This was In Your House in Manitoba, Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Shawn Michaels had legitimately been jumped by some folks at a bar. Now that we've known the details, now it's they've come out, and Shawn was physically unable to wrestle because of what happened. Davey Boy, and I believe Owen Hart were involved in a scuffle. Shawn got the brunt of it. His head slammed in a car door. His earrings ripped out of his ear, and just the worst for wear. And he was the reigning Intercontinental Champion, so he came to the ring to forfeit the belt, and the person he was supposed to wrestle then became the Intercontinental Champion. That man, of course, is Dean Douglas, who we now know as Shane Douglas. So Shawn Michaels came to the ring, forfeited his Intercontinental Championship, and Dean Douglas became the Intercontinental Champion, just in time for him to defend his Intercontinental Championship against Razor Ramon. And what Dean Douglas did was introduce Razor Ramon. I've never seen or heard of an opponent, a wrestler introducing his opponent.
Yeah.
And Razor Ramon, of course, would go on to win the Intercontinental Championship, making Dean Douglas one of the bigger asterisks in WWE history.
Perfect segue, because I was about to say, I just a couple months ago, I just got past the Dean Douglas phase of WWF Raw. It wasn't that bad. I've heard, and I'm gonna be honest, some of the early to mid '90s Raw stuff I missed because I was fully watching WCW at that point, so a lot of it I missed. till about 97, where I was watching both again. It's not that bad.
No,
it,
compared to what we've seen even back in the 90s,
yeah,
that's not the worst gimmick in the world.
It was good stuff. It was. I don't feel that was X-Pac heat. He would bring these big words and talk down to you like you were all pricks, and he was the cock of the walk. And it infuriated me to the point where I'm like, I just want to see somebody kill this person. And it was Razor, but that I have no idea why anybody. It was for kids, man. It was a heel for kids, and it wasn't as, it's not as bad as people thought. I go back and watch Dean Douglas. I like Shane. He should let go of the Ric Flair thing a little bit. The dudes with attitudes, or whatever the hell the tag team was stupid. Let's just say that was stupid. But Dean Douglas, and of course the franchise, that gimmick, it was great. The Dean wasn't perfect, but it's not as bad as people like. This is one of the worst things I've ever seen on the top 10 list. Get the hell out of here. I've seen much worse.
Red Roosters, Goons, Toilet Repairmen, Garbage Men, all killer clowns, mad monks, all get all way above a Dean. Yes. And if he didn't have any problem with the Genius or the aforementioned Idol Stevens, Damian Sandow, then really there's nothing I can say because it's the same character. On that same card though, Dan, during the Dean Douglas 30-second Intercontinental Championship win, was the debut of Goldust.
Oh, that's right.
On that same card. So that took place 24 years ago. And Goldust still going strong. And October 22nd, back to No Mercy. And the No Mercy pay-per-view. Bad week for The Rock. Because The Rock, I mentioned the previous day, he had lost the WCW Heavyweight Championship to to Chris Jericho. Well, on this date, October 22nd, The Rock would lose the WWF Heavyweight Championship to Kurt Angle. And that would be Kurt Angle's first World Championship. Year 2000. October 22nd, that same date, 2001, was one of the worst injuries in professional wrestling history. We talked about if there was footage of Japan stuff. I don't want to see footage of this. October 22nd, 2001 was the injury to the top star in FMW, Frontier Martial Arts in Japan, Hayabusa. Was paralyzed in the ring.
Yeah.
He attempted to do a moonsault, or a lionsault rather, from the middle rope, and he came up short and he landed right on his head and was paralyzed. At the time, that was 2001, the most gruesome injury that had occurred in a wrestling ring. It made all the this was the beginning. There was no internet. This was when I got everything from the Pro Wrestling Illustrated weekly newsletter, and that was even just reading about it sent chills up my spine. Since then, Hayabusa has regained feeling. He's can walk now, and he is mobile. But obviously, his wrestling career has long been over. But I think he would have I was looking forward to seeing his eventual debut in ECW, and whether he would have gotten on to the big two was debatable. But he definitely would have had some highlight matches at Swanson and Rittner at the ECW arena had his career continued. But his injury was just a landmark because this is during the height of the hardcore matches. And Frontier Wrestling (FMW) was was kind of a partner for ECW. That's where we got Sabu. That's where we got a lot of the Japanese wrestlers that would become popular in the States. So that was one of the most gruesome injuries in professional wrestling. Hayabusa.
Mm.
And I apologize being distracted. Today
Understood.
in pro wrestling history, ladies and gentlemen, and this ties into where we are right now in the sport of professional wrestling. But on this day, Dan, 9 years ago today, Brock Lesnar would lose his UFC heavyweight championship to Cain Velasquez.
Oh man, what timing!
That's what I'm talking about. 9 years ago today.
Oh man, and we've come full circle. And before you sign off, I wanted to add something that was probably a given, but I just realized there is a man in NXT. We talked about families this week and tragedy. Not so much tragedy, although Hector Garza's passing. I didn't know he passed in 2012.
Yeah.
Hector Garza is a guy that wrestled in WCW. Well, he wrestled everywhere. It was Hector Garza, but Angel Garza, his nephew, is wrestling in NXT right now, actively as I speak, right now on the screen.
Wow.
The other member of the family who is also connected to Humberto Garza, Humberto Carrillo, is also a Garza. So you have two Garzas in the WWE right now. I did not know. First of all, it's the first time I recall seeing Angel Garza. And as soon as I saw the last name, I'm like, gotta be related. The first thing I thought of was Hector Garza. Oh, yeah. Oh, and he's dead? I had no idea he died of cancer in 2012 or 13. I just found that out. And not only that, his cousin, Humberto, is also wrestling in the WWE. This is if you look up the Garza family tree on Wikipedia, it is a hell of a family tree. That it's got like 3 different branches, and they're all in wrestling. That's crazy. And I knew it was an extensive family. I didn't realize we had wrestling royalty times 2 in the WWE right now. So that's awesome.
I was not aware of that. Yeah, I was not aware of that either. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that in because that falls under wrestling historian. So I didn't want to step on your toes on your outro. So, sir, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Dan. And that, my friends, is called the Wrestling Historian.
That's a great. Still one of my favorite things, because even if we have a lot to talk about with wrestling, for the last 2 weeks we had some good stuff to discuss. Last week was one of my favorite. 2 guys that sounded like they knew they were, not to blow smoke up my own ass, but 2 guys that have been watching wrestling a long time that knew. Thank you. That made me feel good. That knew what the hell they were talking about. Actually, having an intelligent discussion and not yelling at each other, which is most other wrestling podcasts. Not all of them. There's some good ones out there, but someday somebody will hear us. That being said, there was a great segment. I have not seen the audio yet on AEW. Where the Inner Circle was up in the box. You're going to see this later. And Cody was out to cut a promo, and Jericho started talking from the box, and it went back and forth, and all of a sudden, Dustin came out. He said, that's 2, and he pointed to the entrance ramp. Then MJF came out. And then MJF pointed to the entrance ramp, and Diamond Dallas goddamn Page came out. And they walked up, literally through the crowd, up the stairs, into the press box. Cody Rhodes punched through the glass window, and they beat the holy hell out of them inside of the, the hell's the word for this? The friggin', God damn it, the hallway. There's a word for it. Concourse. Thank you.
Concourse. Yeah.
Thank you. It was a great segment, but what you had was the gimmick they were going with is Jericho bought the ticket. So as he's on his knees after he's getting his tail kicked, you see classic Jericho on the ground going, I won this ticket. And Joey Janela and Kenny Omega had match of the week so far.
Okay.
So when you watch it, if there's anything earth shattering, we'll talk about it next week for that and SmackDown. Craig, the Sixers are on, so please tell everybody what you got coming up on Comic Book Gurus and where the people can follow you. God damn it, here they come.
Sorry, on the mic. The people can follow me at Craig Lagans on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Craig Lagans, CraigLiGeons. I'll be talking about the Comic Book Gurus at Comic Book Gurus on on iTunes, Twitter, Facebook. We'll be discussing the new HBO series Watchmen, based on the popular graphic novel that just debuted. Still some more Joker backlash. And another Oscar-winning director decides to run his old mouth about the Marvel movies. So we'll be discussing Statler and Waldorf and their comments on the Marvel universe. That's who they remind me. The two old guys in the balcony of the theater. This is the worst thing I ever saw. Whoa. Yeah. Yeah.
Listen,
so
they're allowed to have a valid opinion, but shut up.
Yeah. That doesn't make me dislike your movies at all, and because you don't like my favorite movies, but it's just, I'm sure someone asked them a question and they just chimed in, but I don't even know why it's getting any credence. But that's what we'll be discussing on Comic Book Gurus on Comic Book Gurus. Comic Book Gurus podcast on WMMR.com and wherever fine podcasts are sold for free.
Sold for free, and we will always sell you for free. I am the above average comedian, Dan Galchico. Follow me on Twitter at DanLaughty3. All HIAC Talk Radio social media accounts. Just type in HIAC Talk Radio. The site will be back in around 2 weeks. It is live. It is not finished. It is a blank slate, but it is coming back. So until then, thebradyhicks.com, VOC Nation Radio Network on iTunes to download the Obey the Puck podcast, the Stadium Journey podcast, and the continuing adventures of Craig and Dan, the HIAC Wrestling Podcast, all there. For Craig Lagans, Super Craig, I am Dan. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.